You've landed on planet 412. I'll be your captain of sorts as we navigate this strange, cryptid-filled world. Join me on the quest for truth, through the strange, mysterious, and supernatural. This is Planet 412.
If you're looking for a place that oozes mystery and sends shivers down your spine, there's nowhere quite like the Solomon Islands. This shadowy chain of islands lost out in the Pacific Ocean east of Papua New Guinea is a tangled mess of jungle-choked mountains and hundreds of smaller islands. Guadalcanal, the biggest island, is where you'll find Honiara's capital city. But what you hear whispered about this place, well, let's just say it ain't about pretty beaches and umbrella drinks. We're talking bizarre stuff, the kind of strangeness that'll keep you up at night. A good chunk of what we know about it comes from a guy named Marius Boyrayan. He was an Australian aircraft engineer who, get this, decided to ditch his old life and settle right into the heart of it all. He wrote a book called Solomon Island Mysteries, and let me tell you, that title ain't just for show. See, Marius, he wasn't just some tourist passing through. He took early retirement, married a local woman, and basically became part of the community on Guadalcanal Island. And here's where things get really strange, folks. You're thinking about dense tropical forests? Well, the locals told Marius that those jungles were crawling with something entirely different, humanoid giants. These things were over 15 feet tall. It sounds crazy, but out there, seeing one is about as normal as spotting a deer. Nobody gets too excited about it. What does send chills down their spines are the stories. Those get passed down like precious heirlooms. Word is they sometimes kidnap women and breed with him, and some of those half human, half giant offspring are still out there. Now, if you think giant man-eating monsters are enough to make your head spin, hold on tight, folks, because it gets weirder. Marius writes about something else that happens on the islands, and it happens a lot, almost every other night. A blindingly bright, dangerous UFO, a thing the islanders call a dragon snake, goes streaking across the sky, buzzing the islands. And get this, the locals ain't just scared of the lights in the sky, they're downright terrified. While Marius was living in a little seaside village, he learned that this thing would come roaring out of the mountains at night. For generations, the dragon snake was the stuff of nightmares. They say its eyes burned red and that those beams could flat out kill a person. Some folks even vanished without a trace, and the dragon snake got the blame. Then one night, Marius was out by the water with his buddy Joseph, spear fishing with a torch, and that's when he saw it for the first time. So picture this. Marius is looking down the beach and stops dead in his tracks. About half a mile out, there's this thing drifting slowly over the water, a blinding white light like a star ripped out of the sky. He focused his binoculars, and that's when he saw it clear as day. A round, glowing object, maybe 60 feet across, and silent as a ghost. They watched, frozen, as it dipped down and vanished beneath the waves. Joseph, cool as a cucumber, told Marius to hold tight and that it'd be back. 10 minutes later, sure enough, it rises up out of the ocean, blazing twice as bright as before. Marius tracks it with his binoculars as it heads back to shore, disappearing behind the palm trees like it was never there. And get this, folks, that sighting wasn't a one-time thing. This UFO showed up almost every other night. Marius says he saw it over 60 times in just 7 months. One night, it even buzzed right over his house. The light was so bright that it turned the whole area into daylight. This thing wasn't just fast, it could straight up vanish like it was switching on a cloaking device from some sci fi movie. Now, the locals have been seeing the dragon snake for over 100 years, and the stories they told weren't about some friendly alien coming down for tea. This thing was mean, picking off people and sparking genuine terror. All of this left Marius' mind spinning. How many of these UFOs were out there? Why were they diving into the ocean? And what on earth did they want with the islanders? See, Marius wasn't the type to just believe wild stories, especially when they came from some far off land. But a couple of things happened that convinced him that these UFO tales weren't just for scaring tourists. One day, his buddy Joseph comes to him with news of a fisherman who had a nasty run in with the dragon snake. This fisherman's whole body was covered in burns, so bad that he was laid up in the hospital, wrapped in bandages like a mummy. It turns out that the poor guy had been out on his boat in the middle of the night when he saw the dragon snake streaking across the sky. Now, you or I might just watch and keep our mouths shut, but this guy makes a big mistake. He starts flashing his torch at it, the biggest mistake of his life. In a heartbeat, that thing was bearing down on him, hovering right over his tiny boat. He guns the engine, weaving and dodging, trying to get back to shore, but the dragon snake keeps pace, and then zap, it fires some kind of light beam, scorching his body. The dude somehow makes it to the beach, drags himself into the jungle, and that UFO hunts him down, hovering right above his hiding spot. Now, what kind of messed up thing is that, right? Dude shines a flashlight and gets blasted with some alien ray guns. Sadly, it turns out the dragon snake has a history of, shall we say, overreacting. Plenty of times the islanders have seen it terrorizing people for no good reason. This is where things get extra weird, folks. See, this nasty streak in UFOs ain't something you hear about too often. But here's the thing, there was one other time and one other place where UFOs got violent: Brazil, back in 1977 and 78. A UFO investigator named Bob Pratt dug deep, and let me tell you, the stories he uncovered were downright chilling. People are getting burned by UFOs, some even dying from their injuries. You can find all the gory details in something called the Black Vault Encyclopedia Project, if you got the stomach for it. The Brazilian Air Force got so spooked by these UFO attacks that they launched a whole investigation called Operation Prado. From what I hear, things got so out of hand in Brazil that mayors from those little towns were practically begging the government for help. People weren't just seeing lights in the sky, they were getting zapped by them and burned badly. We're talking about UFOs swarming all over the place. The Air Force guys saw the UFOs too. They even snapped pictures and filmed some of that craziness. The word is they even caught some of those UFOs diving in and out of the ocean. The official investigation ended after a few months, but some guys on the team were so obsessed they kept digging. Years later, a retired lieutenant colonel named Hollanda finally spilled the beans, and what he said will make your blood run cold. He confirmed that many people got burned by UFOs, bad burns. A doctor even told researchers that a colonel had shown him a pile of photos of victims. The official word from the doctor in charge down there: about 40 people were treated and at least 2 were dead. She even said the Air Force guys knew what was happening. A guy named Bob Pratt wasn't about to let these stories get swept under the rug. He wrote a whole book called UFO Danger Zone. And let me tell you, the accounts from those poor folks in Brazil during the 78 UFO craze are straight up nightmare fuel. Picture this: you're going about your business at night when bam, a UFO appears out of nowhere, blinding light floods everything, and the thing starts chasing you down. They tried snatching people up with some kind of tractor beam, or worse, straight up kidnapping them. Some folks got snagged with grappling hooks, others doused with burning liquid to make them let go of whatever they were desperately clinging to. Some victims were even paralyzed with fear during the encounters. The UFOs were relentless, trying for hours to root people out of hiding spots, blasting their way into houses with light beams like something out of a horror movie. The trauma of it all, even if you weren't hurt, you were messed up. You saw this impossible machine, these things that weren't humans trying to take you away. Just spotting a light in the sky was enough to send shivers down your spine because someone you knew probably wasn't so lucky. Now, getting back to Marius's wild time out in the Solomon Islands, things took an even darker turn just after that whole fisherman fiasco. He hears on the radio that two nuns just vanished into thin air while walking down the road. Poof, gone. Now, in this corner of Guadalcanal, the locals say it's a hot spot for the dragon snake snatching folks. So you can imagine Marius's mind racing. Were the UFOs buzzing around again? Or maybe this time the reclusive giants got a hankering for some unconventional company? Folks, this is the freaky reality the Solomon Islanders live with. Something weird happens and it's always a toss up: giant or UFO. Forget about your regular criminals or psychos, those don't even register out there. One day, Marius is chatting with a local chief, and that's when he gets the inside scoop. It turns out the dragon snake has a secret lair, a hidden lake deep in the mountains where a waterfall spills into it. Naturally, he dubbed this spot Mount Dragon. Marius, never one to back away from a mystery, cooked up a plan with his buddy Joseph. They knew venturing this deep into the mountains would be a nightmare: wild boars, venomous snakes, blood sucking leeches everywhere. But the promise of seeing the dragon snake in action fueled them. For 3 grueling days, they pushed through the jungle, clawing their way up steep slopes so slick that they could barely keep their footing. And then they caught sight of it. The lake, half the size of a football field, glinting in the distance, has reeds swaying at the water's edge. They found a hidden spot, camouflaged themselves with branches, and waited. They were risking getting vaporized by the UFO, but hey, sometimes you have to roll the dice for really good stories, right? And their gamble paid off because, as Marius writes, it was close to 9:45 at night when we saw it, a crazy glow shimmering from deep within the lake. Just like that, the UFO surfaces, drifts to the edge of the water, and lifts off. Smooth and silent, it glides down the mountainside at an angle, cruising the length of the valley before winking out into the darkness. My mind was reeling. Everything the chiefs told me was the truth. This was the moment it all changed. Something inside me just shifted, you know? We hunkered down for 2 hours waiting for it to come back. And then another light in the lake, a second UFO emerges. My head was spinning. Two of them? How many could be down there? This time the UFO tears off south down the valley and vanishes just as quickly. The first one would leap back around at some point. So we waited and waited around 2:30 in the morning. It comes cruising back up the valley, making a beeline straight to the lake. Then it submerges, the glow fading as it sinks into the depths. I kept expecting the other UFO to show, but the night stayed quiet. Folks, let me tell you, I've heard some wild UFO stories in my time, but this one takes the cake. Think about it. Marius and Joseph risked their necks to secretly watch these UFOs come and go from that hidden mountain lake. It's like something straight out of science fiction, right? And if his story's legit and I ain't got reason to doubt him, it blows the lid off the whole UFO mystery. This points to some seriously advanced civilization living right under our noses, a whole world we know nothing about. And get this, Marius digs around in the Solomon Island Cultural Museum, finds this old book, and what's inside? Eyewitness sketches of the beings piloting those UFOs. And let me tell you, they ain't the little green men from Mars. They look just like the aliens we hear about all over the world. Someone from the islands put that whole collection together, straight from eyewitness accounts of those creepy critters. See, Marius wasn't the kind of guy to take things at face value. He dug deeper, talked to the locals, and followed every thread. He ended up pinpointing 5 different entry points scattered across the Guadalcanal and Malita Islands, places where the UFOs vanished into the earth itself. He's convinced these ain't just random lights in the sky. This is a whole society, a civilization with crazy technology living right below us. And here's what really messed with his mind: all those UFO sightings from all over the world, that ain't just space aliens cruising in from other planets. He believes the majority of them are coming from beneath our very feet. As he puts it, it's a big world down there. He believes that these underground dwellers aren't visitors from outer space at all, but Earth natives. His theory: they were here hundreds of thousands of years before we humans ever showed up. And here's the kicker: they learned the hard way that the safest place to set up shop is underground. Maybe there were wars, cataclysms, or something else that pushed them down into the deepest parts of the earth. And you know what, folks? Marius might be onto something with that one. Think about it. Down below the earth's crust, you're safe from the crazy temperature swings, the volcanoes spewing fire, and all that harmful radiation blasting us from outer space. The downside, well, you've got to adapt to a world of darkness, breathing different air. It ain't easy. But here's the thing: science is backing this up. It turns out that life underground might be the norm out there in the universe. They're uncovering evidence of massive underground water systems on Mars, Pluto, and one of Jupiter's moons. Oceans are trapped way down below the surface, oceans that could be teeming with life. Imagine way back when aliens from some underground ocean world far, far away crash landed on Earth. They wouldn't stick around to get toasted by the sun. Nope, they'd hightail it underground, find the caves and the aquifers, and make a new home where they'd be safe. Marius thinks the giants of the Solomon Islands, those massive hairy things that keep popping up, are also living underground. Picture this: miles and miles of tunnels snaking below that jungle island, a whole hidden world we don't even see. The locals believe these giants are organized. They have their own underground society, and according to some islanders, their tunnels stretch all the way across Guadalcanal. You never have to come topside. There could be thousands of them down there. Some folks even swear there's a whole giant city tucked inside the mountains somewhere. This ain't just a Solomon Islands thing. All over the world, where you hear tales of Bigfoot and other giants. UFO sightings happen a lot too. It's like there are hot spots on our planet, doorways to that underground world. The subterrestrials, whatever they are, use these spots for their late night outings, buzzing people and flashing those bright lights. And that's what makes places like the Solomon Islands so crazy. Giants and UFOs all in one spot. Marius, with all the stuff he saw and learned out there, got us one step closer to figuring out this wild mystery, a mystery where the answers aren't easy to come by. Now, hold on to your hats because we're diving into what might just be the absolute wildest and downright most astonishing case you've ever heard. Picture this: we're transported back to the year 1561 in the historic city of Nuremberg, Germany. It's April 14th, a day that started just like any other until suddenly it wasn't. Imagine you're one of the townsfolk going about your daily business when you're compelled to stop dead in your tracks and gaze skyward, struck by a mix of wonder and undeniable fear. Why? Because up above, the sky is turning into a scene straight out of an epic blockbuster. But remember, this is the 1500s. CGI isn't a thing. We're talking about hundreds of mysterious objects, a veritable smorgasbord of shapes and sizes zipping through the heavens like nothing anyone's ever seen. There are spheres, cylinders that could pass for futuristic tubes, objects that resemble saucers and crosses, ovals that might make you think of lunar crescents, a menacing black spear, and so many other things. And these aren't just floating around aimlessly. No, it's like they're caught in a high stakes, no holds barred aerial showdown right there in the sky, zapping around at unbelievable speeds. And if witnesses are to be believed, one of these bad boys goes down, crashing somewhere off in the distant wilderness. And now try to picture the scene as the local paper of the time tried to capture it. Imagine the sun, and right in the middle, two haunting blood red semicircles stare back at you. This ominous Ferris colored ball surrounds the sun, and it's like a canvas splashed with blood. Picture all around the sun these blood red and otherworldly spheres lining up in patterns. Some are three in a line, some square up four to form a group, and a few rogues flying solo. Among these globes, there are these vivid blood red crosses with shimmering strips that thicken and twist like wild reed grass, ensnaring among them hefty rods on either side. And amidst these rods and spheres, a chaotic dance ensues. It's almost cinematic. Spheres from the sun throwing down, with those hanging around the outskirts, diving back into the solar fray before exploding outwards. This celestial rumble with globes and crosses zigzagging and clashing furiously goes on for over an hour. And just when it seems like the intensity could not surge any higher, fatigue sets in. These objects, as described, plummet down to earth in a blaze, dissipating into thick smoke upon impact. And as the dust settles, there's the sighting of a colossal black spear bridging east to west, an ominous cherry on top of this bewildering event. Well, that's left to a higher power to know what all this meant. So, what do you think? Could the citizens of Nuremberg have been the audience for an otherworldly skirmish, a display of celestial power, or is there another explanation for this centuries old spectacle? The 1561 sky over Nuremberg, without a doubt, serves as a potent reminder that sometimes reality truly is stranger than fiction. For a solid hour, the skies above were filled with all manner of strange phenomena, darting and weaving as if engaged in an aerial ballet, or more fittingly, a battle. Then, as swiftly as they appeared, these mysterious objects bolted towards the sun and out of sight. This event was so compelling that it was immortalized in a woodblock print, a depiction that would much later capture the imagination of the world when featured in Carl Jung's 1958 seminal work, Flying Saucers, a modern myth of things seen in the skies. Since then, people have been unable to wrap their heads around what it could possibly mean. And at the time, observers interpreted this spectacle as a heavenly sign, a divine skirmish unfolding before their very eyes. Remember, this was a time when the very notion of flying saucers was beyond comprehension. Humanity's grasp on both the cosmos and the concept of aviation was, to put it mildly, embryonic. So it stands to reason that they would lean on religious explanations for phenomena beyond their understanding. As our understanding of the world and the skies expanded, interpretations of this event evolved. Some theorized that it might have been a natural phenomenon, like a sundog, or perhaps something more terrestrial, like swarms of insects, peculiar cloud formations, or flocks of birds caught in an unusual dance. Others posited that it might have been embellished yarn, or more intriguingly, an actual aerial conflict between unidentified flying objects. The truth, shrouded in the mists of time, remains elusive yet undeniably fascinating. In an uncannily similar episode years later, in April of 1665, the skies over Barhöft, then part of Sweden, now Germany, became the stage for another mysterious display. Witnesses reported numerous disc-shaped objects clashing in the heavens before dispersing, leaving one to loom ominously overhead. This singular object, described by observer Erasmus Francisci as resembling a large dark moon or a hefty man's hat, seemed to cast a pall over the onlookers below. Stationed above the St. Nikolai Church until dusk, it left fishermen who dared gaze upon it filled with dread, their hands clasped over their faces in fear. In the days that followed, these men were beset by a mysterious illness characterized by shaking, headaches, and body pains, leaving learned folks of the time deeply pondered over the spectacle. Both of these events, separated by time and geography, weave a tapestry of human encounters with the unknown that is as bewildering as it is enthralling. People have tossed around explanations suggesting maybe it was just mirages or a flock of birds playing tricks on the eye. But there's a twist that sends chills down your spine. The fisherman who fell ill after witnessing these events, it's a detail that screams of radiation sickness in a time when the very concept of radiation was as alien as the crafts themselves. What in the world was going on? Cue to a more contemporary scene in 1980 in the quiet Australian town of Aldgate. Enter Rob and Phil Tyndale, two brothers whose night was about to take a turn into the unexplainable. They catch sight of a yellow object in the sky, dancing about as if it had a life of its own. Suddenly, it's not alone. A second object appears, this one throwing red lights at the first, as if engaged in some cosmic battle. The brothers watched, mouths agape, as these objects performed a mesmerizing aerial ballet, a chase that seemed to defy every law of physics known to man. It wasn't just the Tyndale brothers who were witnesses to this extraordinary event. A local farmer, Darrell Brown, saw a speedboat-shaped yellow thing crash through trees, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. What exactly unfolded above and in the woods of Aldgate? But wait, the plot thickens. Fast forward to 1989 in a small Russian town where a scene straight out of a sci fi movie unfolded. Hundreds of eyes were glued to the sky as six silvery saucers gave chase to a larger golden UFO. They zipped and zoomed across the sky with agility at its peak, all while exchanging fierce beams of light that would put any special effects to shame. The energy discharge from this otherworldly encounter was so intense that it plunged the whole town into darkness. Can you imagine standing there, witnessing a spectacle that would leave you questioning the nature of reality itself? These accounts, as incredible as they sound, force us to wonder, what are we really sharing this vast universe with? The truth, it seems, is far stranger and more elusive than fiction. So the next time you look up at the night sky, remember the unknown is just a glance away. Here's where the story takes a twist straight from the pages of a science fiction novel. Imagine this: silver saucers, not just one or two, but a whole group of them, seemingly ganging up on a singular golden object high above. This isn't your average aerial display. It's more like an intergalactic showdown. The golden craft, under a relentless barrage of energy beams from its silver adversaries, starts to wane, eventually spiraling down towards the earth, crash landing in what's described as a bog within a military test range close by. No sooner had this golden object met the ground than the silver saucers darted off into the horizon, leaving behind a scene straight out of a movie. Now, here's where curiosity battles with frustration, because despite the urge of the witnesses to rush to the crash site, it lay within a tightly guarded military zone, strictly no entry for civilians. According to a certain subaltern, it didn't take long for the military to swoop in, securing the area post haste. In the aftermath, reports surfaced of personnel falling ill under mysterious circumstances and nearby aircraft experiencing unexplained interference. So, what became of this supposed extraterrestrial visitor? Why did it become the target of such aggression? It remains a mystery. And here we are, left pondering these peculiar and eyebrow raising accounts where, instead of human made jets taking on these UFOs, they seem to be locked in combat with each other. It's an uncanny thought. Advanced beings, possibly from different corners of the universe, testing their strength and engaging in aerial duels right above our heads. If these accounts hold any shred of truth, one has to wonder about the reasons behind such skirmishes. Could it be that these entities, these pilots of the unknown, belong to different factions, occasionally clashing over undisclosed vendettas? Or perhaps it's all a grand spectacle of misunderstood phenomena, creating the illusion of battle among the stars. These stories, whether grounded in reality or not, fuel the imagination, painting vivid pictures of what might lurk beyond our understanding. It's the kind of tale that Mr. Ballin would delve into, leaving us to question the boundaries of our reality and the mysteries that float just beyond our grasp. They might be far-fetched, maybe even downright fantastical, but who can resist the allure of the unknown and the thrill of what if? If guys enjoyed today's episode, smack that like and subscribe button for more from Planet 412 as we dive deeper into the world's unknown and the greatest mysteries of our time. Thank you for joining.